All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking now because we have the madman, the myth, the legend, Coach Kurt Hester with us. So, Coach, thank you very much for bringing, coming to the stage and being up here with us. If you can, for those that aren't aware of who you are and where you're at, could you just give yourself a quick kind of, wrap up of where you've been over the last 25 years and your kind of strength career?
Kind of started out in U.S. Olympic Training Center with Coach Gail Hatch as a young athlete. My brothers worked in shipyards. They started building me equipment when I was 12. So I started training at 12 years old, around 1975. Then moved to Baton Rouge, worked with Coach Hatch. Got into physiology at Tulane. Worked with Tom Shaw at Tulane, and then my career kind of took off because of Coach Hatch and because of Tom Shaw was like the first real speed coach in the NFL and in college football. And went to LSU, then owned my own business, went to D1 sports training, helped build that out to about 36 facilities before I got tired of corporate life and went back to coaching in college at Louisiana Tech, and then just started Tulane in January.
What's it like working at your alma mater?
30 years later, it's kind of cool, that I kind of started there. I ran the physiology lab while I was there before I went to LSU, and to be able to come back to kind of my hometown 30 years later is pretty cool. New Orleans is New Orleans, man. It's kind of, when you grow up there, it's kind of hard to live anywhere else.
How close was Nashville when you were up in, the D1 sports area to, that living area?
It's Franklin, so it's just a suburb of Nashville.
Yeah.
So I actually live downtown Nashville.
Oh, okay.
Because it's more fun.
How did you like working in that? You said you had to get out of it, but a lot of our listeners are kind of going that route. How do you equate success in that world in today's strength and conditioning?
It's a little different because you have to go out and kill. If you don't kill, you don't eat. So I kind of ran my own facility. I trained 500 athletes a day in my own facility in Louisiana. So at one point in time, it was Mike Boyle and me we had the only like real standalone facilities in the country. So I had really no competition, and I trained athletes from 12 years old all the way to NFL, NHL, NBA, and literally 500 a day. We had a full staff. I ran it like a true strength and conditioning college program. And from the discipline aspect of everything we did, and parents loved it because it's like most of the time didn't want to discipline their own kids, but we were really hard on them. I didn't care. I had so many clients, I didn't care if they quit because I knew we were going to just fill it up with another kid. So we trained 3 5A total football teams where they trained at our facility. They didn't train at school. We trained a few 5A female soccer teams, 5A male soccer team. We trained over 20,000 athletes in a period of time. I think we had over 3 or 4,000 athletes get scholarships. A lot of them were high school All-Americans. They were going to LSU, they were going to Auburn, they were going to Tulane, and Mississippi State. They were going all over the country to play. It was kind of a neat era of training because, like I said, no competition. There was no one there was no barometer for us. So we were doing really well. And just, you're not with a team per se. You're not training a team from the time they get to you as freshmen all the way through to they leave 4 or 5 years later. So it's a little different situation as far as what you get out of it. It's easier on your family. It's, because I started my career in college, went away from it for 12 years, and then went back to college. So I kind of raised my kids where, I was off basically from August to January or late December. I could go hunt, fish, travel, do whatever I wanted to do, and then just kill myself from January to August and put money away to get me through the lean months, because the lean months are going to be once football starts, because that's going to be predominantly most of your clientele. If I did it over again, I'd probably build a box and waste my $1,000 or whatever to get CrossFit certified and build an anti-CrossFit. And because adults train year round, whereas athletes are in and out. And so with adults, you get a constant stream of income. And I'd probably, go have therapy, nutrition, everything to when CrossFitters get murdered at a CrossFit from dumbass coaches, they come, we put them back together, we get them to compete at a high level. So I think I'd probably set one down dead center in the middle of the most CrossFits I could find, right next to an orthopedic surgeon and in hospital, so they can have their surgeries and they come rehab and rebuild them.
What would you say was the things and the people that were training out of there was unbelievable. What would you attribute that success to for anybody that listened to that?
I think we almost had like a CrossFit culture, as far as it was kind of like, training at our facility. It was called HS2. And training at our facility was kind of like, you're a badass when you train here, and everybody else is kind of a pussy if you go train somewhere else. So it was like, we had that, we kind of developed that mentality of whether it was male or female. I mean, even our female athletes were like, they were probably more aggressive than male athletes about like, we're badasses here, go train like a girl somewhere else, and it was pretty cool, it was 12 years of, I made 3 times the money I made at LSU. And literally I love to hunt and fish. So man, I freaking hunted from teal season in September all the way through January. And I started getting my guys getting ready for the draft, usually like the week before Christmas. And I'd finish up hunting season and then train straight through all the way through August, all the way through OTAs before I had a break again.
That mindset that you talked about, it seems like you've carried that with you, when you were at La Tech, and again on Green Wave, anything that you've put out on social media for people to see. Talk about how you go about building that for anybody that hasn't read your book or hasn't seen you on social media.
I mean, I interviewed for Colorado one year, and I turned it down because I didn't think it was like the right fit for me. But the AD asked me, because all I hear is about how you build culture and all. And I tell him, I said, man, like, I don't know. I'm 100% me, and real's real. And I don't try to pretend to be somebody else. And I read athletes really well. I kind of read where we're at in time in training. And I'll always have something in my mind for any kind of event that I need for them to, to basically understand where they're at, in the year, getting ready for a season, where they're at mentally. Like we did this great surge at Tulane a week ago, and we called it the dogfight attack. And, for me, it's just for the athletes, it's a competition. They want to they choose teams, 8 captains, 10 guys to a team. And we come up with like 8 archaic events, and we go through them to make sure to try and idiot proof them so they can't kill themselves, which is hard to do because the athlete's going to try and cheat his way through to try and win. So we'd go through and go, okay, in every case scenario, you're trying to cheat this event, how would you hurt yourself? And we kind of idiot proof it. And it's just a barometer. It just kind of, I do it in the middle of the summer to kind of see where we are mentally. It has nothing to do with physical. It's brutal. It's beyond glycolytic. I mean, dudes like push their bodies to the limit because they're going to go 100%. And it's 8 reps. It's 8 reps at 100%. And they're like physically shot at the end, barely to get to the championship round. And they still got one event left to complete. But I just give them a few directives, like lead. If you're not leading, you follow. So I want to see guys finish, whether you're in first place or last place. And when you have adversity, I want to see you overcome it. I don't want to see you lose your mind when somebody starts talking trash to you. I want you to focus on what you have to do at that point in time. And it just tells us where we're at in training so that we have another month to try and fix any of the problems with the athletes that we see. We're athletes who tend to want to quit, athletes that they're so soft that if someone gets on their ass, they explode and verbally, verbally respond because they're mentally weak. And we show them that in the context of a game, if you do that in a game, you're either getting a flag or you're getting tossed out. You're not worried about the next play. You're worried about someone talking shit to you, which has no relevance in the game whatsoever. So, it just tells us where we're at in training, and it's an event that the athletes always look forward to. And so it's not a negative thing. A lot of people look at it and go, well, it has nothing to do with football. It doesn't, but it has something to do with the team itself and the culture of the team. But from a physical standpoint, it has absolutely nothing except maybe get their GPP up pretty, a little bit higher than it was before, because it is that brutal.
Now, you talked about the fact you did it in week 4, so that way they already had their training base, and you've talked about doing those things before. How do you go about measuring the specificness of, mindset and culture? Because in your book, and you seem to be very detailed with a ton of stuff of like getting to know the athletes and, documenting things and just having your T's crossed and your I's dotted. What are some of the metrics or methods you use to, track mindset of the athletes and the current state of the culture of the team?
I mean, when I first got to Tulane, the first thing I had them fill out a survey with that's like 18, 19 questions on it. It kind of tells me who they are. Like, they come from a 1-parent household or a 2-parent household. Who is their go-to person if they're really in a bad situation? Who are they going to call? What kind of music do they like? What kind of movies do they like? Just a lot of different things that I'll read over them and try to memorize as much as humanly possible. You'll see some stuff on some athletes that you're like, it's kind of funny. Like, I have an athlete who is from Kansas who I thought all he loved was rap music, and he was like, his favorite band was Hall & Oates, and I'm going, what? What do you know about Hall & Oates, man? He's like, Coach, I know all their songs. And he loved to fish, and so these guys that you think you would know something about them, but you really don't. So it gives you just a little window into who they are, and gives you a base of when you're with a new team, that you get to know the athletes and know a little bit about them, just so you can start conversations with them, and that's the beginning of building trust. And the fact that when I do talk with an athlete, anything that we talk about is just between him and I and no one else. If I see an athlete who's typically upbeat and he walks in and he's not typically his normal self, I'll bring him in, either pull him aside, bring him off, and say, okay, what's going on today? And you'll be, shocked that sometimes there's somebody who died in the family. There's, someone who's sick in the family, or something that's bad happened at home that they're dealing with mentally. And if you just jump all over the kid's ass because he's not having the day he normally has, you lose trust quickly. It's so easy. It's very hard to gain trust, and you can lose trust in one instance, in one moment in time. And so as I've gotten older, because I'm a beyond reactive human, kind of super reactive. And I've had to really, I have zero patience, and I'm very reactive. So I've had to really, understand myself so that I can understand, the athletes better. And that a lot of it is, was things that I did as a younger coach, I could never get away with now. But at the same time, I wasn't reading the athletes. I wasn't reading the situation. I was too immature. But it takes time. It takes, patience, and just kind of understanding where they are in the weekly scheme throughout the year, and kind of what you need out of them. And I know everything about every team we play, schedules, who's starting, and I bring up stuff like that in training. I know a lot about the whole staff, whether it's the strength staff, the training staff, the football staff on every team we play. And I'm constantly bringing that kind of stuff to their attention. I'll stop a workout in the middle of a workout if I don't think it's going right, as far as where they're at mentally in the workout, where their focus is. Even though I go through at the beginning of the workout, I want you to focus really on this, and this today, and get them back online so that we always finish on a real positive note at the end of a training session.
Well, that makes sense. And it kind of made me wonder, like, how do you handle that balance between they're the kids that playing on the field. So, at some point they have to figure it out on their own, but a coach will call a timeout in the middle of the game and try to skew things back in the direction that they're supposed to. So that makes a ton of sense.
I mean, even during the games, I'm supposed to be a get back guy, and work with special teams. But my whole focus is the coaches have headsets on. They're so worried about the next play of the call. All I care about is what I hear when they're coming off the field, how they're talking to each other, how they're reacting on the field, whether it's a good play or a bad play. And that's where all my attention is always directed. And I'll, as they come off the field, I'll talk to them to try to get them back in line, their focus where it's supposed to be, whether it's their focus is we just scored or made a big play. It's like, hey, try to stay a little more even. This will be a long ass game, so that you're not up and down where they're so high and then all of a sudden team does something really good and they drop to a really low. Is try to keep them level throughout the game and keep them focused on the next play or what they need to do on the next play to fix things when they're on the sideline sitting on the bench. So I think my focus is a little different. And plus, because we work so much on combat and martial arts, I'll look, especially with the defensive players, defensive line, of what an offensive lineman is doing to them and how they can counter stuff. And, or they'll come up to me. All right, look, he's doing this. How do I counter it? And I help them try to counter things to where it keeps the offensive lineman guessing on everything, what they're going to do.
So, I mean, a few things that's awesome about, what you do with them coming off the sideline. Second of all, the fact that you're not keeping coaches back and holding their belt loop, that's unacceptable. You got to start, you got to start being the get back guys. You get your own ESPN special, Dude,
my language, if they had me anywhere near a mic, the way I talk, it would not go good on national television.
How does the D-line coach feel about, the guys wanting to talk to you? Because, you just said brand new year, brand new staff, you'll still find out, but having systems in place when you're at La Tech for a while, I'm sure it was, you were different. The mainstay. Yeah. But I mean, how do you envision that? You had spring ball. How'd that go?
Yeah, I think it went well. I mean, no injuries, which was awesome. And they had a lot of injuries the last couple of years. So, we got through it pretty good. And still all through training, we're pretty healthy. I know I immediately day one with the offensive line coach and defensive line coach talked to him about what I've done before in the past and kind of showed them. And they were like all into it. And I kind of got in trouble because I'm not supposed to be like during spring ball. I'm not supposed to be like with the D line. And I'm over there going through drills and doing hand skills with them. And the coach first like, Kurt, you can't do that. I was like, I'm not even thinking. I'm like, why not? We've been doing this in January. And he's like, no, you're like, we have too many coaches on the field as it is. And so I was like, oh, okay. So what we do is we have groups in the afternoon where they come in on their own time and with the O&D line, and we work for about 45 minutes to an hour just on hand skill work.
Same question. Now that, again, you're trying to set systems up in place after being somewhere where you had them for so long, what were some of the biggest takeaways from the prior stop that you are trying to make sure you do and things you're trying to make sure you don't do?
It's a little, at Tech, no one cared about, there was no real compliance. They weren't coming across a hot 100-degree parking lot to even look into the stadium ever. I couldn't even tell you what the compliance dude looked like because I never saw him in 9 years. So we pretty much did whatever we felt like doing. And then Skip had me like, I would go to him. I want to implement this. He's like, go ahead, go for it. I'd go and I had a really good rapport with all the position coaches, whether it would be helping them break down routes and footwork, whether I'm big on vision and cognition, do a lot of vision and cognition work with our DBs, our receivers, our running backs, and our quarterbacks. Kind of do it at the same time. On one area, we have them working on in the afternoon. The other area, we have the O&D line working on combat skills. And I wanted to implement all that stuff because if I'm doing what everybody else is doing in this field, I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to beat you. I want to do everything I want to do all the little things that people don't even think about doing. It was Moyer, Jeff Moyer. I listened to one of his podcasts and from that point on, I read every vision and cognition book I could find. I got with, what's my boy's name? The optometrist that Moyer actually learned from.
Yep.
In Maryland. And I looked on his website, and the main guy on his website was an athlete that I trained. It was an All-American at LSU, All-American outfielder, and Ryan Shemp. And I trained Ryan since he was like 12 or 13 years old. And so I called Ryan. He was with Tampa Bay, and he said, "Yeah, the reason why I got to the league was because of him." And he hooked me up with him, Bill Harrison, and he hooked me up with Dr. Harrison, and we talked about it, and I designed a program where I had basically like a vision center at Tech, and I just kind of I do it in the stadium at Tulane, and we go through peripheral vision, depth perception, and we have this entire program that we work on hand skills and eye tracking, and then we go into catching about 400 different implements, whether it be bricks, Pico sticks, tennis balls, patch on one side, catch with with your dominant eye open, catch with your dominant eye closed. And then we go to about 100 balls on a jug machine after that. So our goal is to have 0 drops. So it's just an entire system. It takes about an hour to get through it from the time we start to the time we finish with the jug machines.
And you guys, it's interesting you say that, because I started doing the same thing from Jeff and got some of the slow the game down things for one of my receivers, mainly, who, jumps out the gym, fastest guy, but, at times when he's going to catch a ball, and then when we tested him, he sees the X in the back of the bead. So everything is coming up on him because his depth perception is bad. Right.
Right.
And he's all of a sudden now he's catching the ball again. And it's interesting how much, that plays into it. Was it hard to get you guys, interested in it, or was it easy because they're like, hey, I want to fucking catch the ball?
Right. Well, at first, when I was at Tech, we had dropped 16 interceptions on defense in one season. And so our two corners were drafted. I mean, Legarius Sneed is starter for Kansas City, and Amik Robinson is a starter for Las Vegas. And two talented guys, but we're dropping far too many balls. So that's when I'd already read a bunch of stuff, but I hadn't put anything to play. And then I was like, man, I got to help these guys catch. And so got a lot of Harrison stuff, and then started putting some things together before we actually had an actual conversation. Then once we had a conversation, really designed everything out, and they were bought in because of how many drops they had. And then my 2 receivers last year at Tech, one of them was one of the top receivers in the country. He had 0 drops the entire year, and the other one had 1. So they were in the top 10 of amount of passes thrown to them with the least amount of drops. So
that's awesome. Yeah, having a statistic like that. Are you using anything else in terms of tackles, successfully made on defense, or tackles, missed on offense, to help you kind of quantify your agility training? Are you going that deep down the rabbit hole too?
No, I haven't gone that far, man. I got a coach who's killing me with KPIs. Like I've got a Kitman that you can't even read it on Kitman. We have so much stuff on it. I'm like, we don't even use half this stuff, man. I just and I look at for vision work, I look at how many we drop during practice and how many we drop during the game, but also look at too is we do a lot of stuff in contact. So what I saw was a lot of times that if they were wide open, they didn't drop a ball, but if they had any kind of contact going for the ball, that was predominantly the most of their drops. So we really just beat the shit out of them while catching the ball, to keep that focus on it, because it's after contact where they lose, where their eyes move, they don't track it all the way in.
You're the second, Louisiana guy talking about Coach Hatch in such a positive light as when Mike Chapman and I was around him. Talk about the influence that he had on you as a coach, not only just from the X's and O's, but as a human.
He was one of the best humans to ever walk the planet. I mean, he was a father to hundreds of guys who probably needed it, who needed a father figure, and he didn't play. He would beat you senseless on a platform, and, but, from a technical standpoint, he's the greatest technical coach that, American born coach in the history of US weightlifting, and, even when I was at Tulane, I would drive over to Baton Rouge 3 times a week to train. And I wouldn't get there to like 8 o'clock at night. And most of the time it'd just be me and him, at 8 o'clock at night. He'd stay to 9:30 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, wait on me to train. Even though I was already like in my coaching career. And then when I was at LSU, I did the same thing. I'd go 3 days a week. I'd get there at 7, train to 8:30. Then we would sit in the office and talk about training for about, another hour before I would drive home. And, and I think because the fact that I might've been like I know I was the first coach that would sit, talk to him. And because the Hatch system is kind of where he wrote a lot of the fourth quarter that you see, LSU and Alabama and Georgia and all that stuff. But what he didn't have, it was strictly from a weightlifting standpoint, not from a player load standpoint of what they're doing in practice, not from a standpoint of speed work, of agility work, of their conditioning. And I would sit and go through them. I'm like, this is why I wouldn't do this the way he had written it. This is why I would do this versus this. And he would be like, you're right. You're going in the right direction. I'm looking at it purely from a lifting standpoint, not from an athletic sports standpoint. And, so then, winning 2 national championships in LSU baseball. And like, he was like so jacked up about that. And I was a little different. I'd walk in, I had really long hair, like Tarzan long hair. And I'd walk in with my hat on backwards, and all the other athletes are like, what? Because he'd make them cut their hair. And like, why does Kurt have to, why could he have long hair? Why does he get to wear a hat on backwards? And he would just go, you're not Kurt. So he always treated me, and he treated me a little different than everybody else. So we had a little different relationship.
How has that affected, your staff, current and past? Because, people that go to work under you at La Tech, they were coming out and they were coach ready. So talk about your development and the relationships that you have with your staff,
I think
past and current.
The way I do a lot of stuff is I know I don't have all the answers, and I know I'm looking at it from my past experiences. They have experiences too. And, like we sat down and wrote out the summer cycle, and, kind of led them, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do with our O&D line. This is what we need to do with our mids. This is what we need to do with our DBs and receivers. And I said, pretty much our O&D line is going to be 60% in the weight room and 40% outside. I said our mids is going to be damn near 50-50, and our skill guys will be 40% in the weight room, 60% outside on every single thing we do. That's their game. Their game is is movement. O&D line, their game is power, beating the shit out of somebody in 10 yards. So we're gonna develop our program with basically those metrics. And so anytime that they wanted to put something in, I would say, okay, tell me why. You better have, if we're going to put something in the workout, you have to argue like you're a lawyer and you're up on this, and you're trying to save some poor soul's life. The poor soul is your exercise. You tell me how it fits and why should we put it in? And we did that. So we're pulling stuff out, putting things in until we got all 3 cycles written synergistically between what we're doing outside and what we're doing inside, so the athlete can recover. And so they're part of the entire process. It's not just me dictating we're doing this and it's final, because even in this summer, we've had to modify just off of what our football coaches were doing. They're doing 2 full practices a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I said, look, man, we're gonna have to mitigate a ton just off of what they're doing. So this is not set in stone. It's gonna be an ebb and flow where we're gonna pull things out, put things in, and might have to microdose a lot of our stuff. And so they learn that all the nuances of programming, not just a lot of strength coaches out there go, I wrote this shit. We're doing this no matter what the sport coaches do. We don't care if they kill them. We're gonna do this lifting, we're going to do this conditioning, we're going to do this speed work, and their volume gets out of the roof. All the athletes do it gets slower and hurt.
So you're alluding to a high performance model where everybody's, collaborating. How is your relationship with the athletic trainer, the dietitian, any of the other support staff members that do have a piece of the pie, but communicate together so it's not just, them taking advantage of their piece of the pie when they get it?
Well, we don't have a nutritionist yet. They're in the process of hiring one right now. I actually got 4 emails about wanting me to get on Zoom for interviews. I'm like, hell no, I'm drinking beer for the next 8 days. Leave me alone. Viewers, you can't see, but I'm on a beach right now with a beer. And I came in which is good is our head trainer trains, which is good.
Oh, nice.
When you have a head trainer trains, they have a higher understanding of what's going on. I actually got certified with our assistant trainer in yoga because we're going to do it on Friday evenings when we're on the road and in the hotels when we're at home to help them recover a little bit. We did it all spring on Fridays on the field using the big screen. I just pull up some random chick who was hot and the whole team they were bought in like immediately and they loved it. The fact that it helped them because we would scrimmage on Saturdays. So that was our Saturday workout was yoga and a lot of mobility work on top of that and rehab. And it helped us get through spring ball. But, we do a lot again, because we have so many KPIs with Nordboard, with InBody, with all this stuff. So we really work together we don't have a big staff, even though we're AAC, we have the smallest staff in the entire conference. And so we depend on each other to survive. I mean, really. So it's been a really good relationship with them.
It's as far as the nutritionist, are you guys kind of leading that up now in terms of any fuel stations and any training tables? So that way you guys have your hand in that?
Yeah, we have actually, that's what I've been doing. I mean, I'm certified in nutrition too. I'm trying not to do everything. I'm trying not to be the maintenance guy, cut the grass, line the fields. I'm trying to be a strength. Every once in a while, I'd like to be a strength coach, and I'm doing everything else. But so we have an awesome grill. I mean, it's like we have chefs. Like I was amazed at the grill we have and the type of food they put on the table and the quantity of food. And then we have a huge fueling station that they can go to. They can also eat and have swipes on the Commons, which is like massive dining hall on campus, which is top of the line too. Being a private institution, it costs $90,000 to go to.
Wow.
The food better be pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah, just because of what you're paying to go to school. So most of the which is weird is like most of the students they can eat in the athletic one. Yep. And they like it better than the Commons, where they're supposed to go. So that's how good the food is. So that's the one thing we have going for us. Now we have a small staff. It's a shared staff with the Olympic side. Okay. I'm the only full-time football guy. And so, guys are in and out. So, having to go work with other sports. And so, but, at Tech, I was me and one other guy started with every sport. So it's not a big deal to me.
So for any of our listeners, they may be a head guy similar to you that only has football, but their assistants have other teams. How do you handle those logistics, especially when you're doing so many moving parts of some of the linemen are in the weight room more and the skill guys need to be outside more? How do you handle that?
We have like it blocked off from in the summertime from 6 to 10. And so we go from 6 to 10, we train 3 groups and they kind of overlap. So I'll stay on the field doing all the speed or agility work while they start another group, and then I'll come in, finish the group, and then go and swing back outside. And we kind of we do some FRC in between to kind of slow things down and give us a little more time. So we kind of threw in a FRC for 10 or 15 minutes to give us a little more time in the weight room before we transition. It's been hard with a couple of we have some youth sport coaches, Olympic coaches that come in and, they're coming from big schools and used to having these huge staffs, it's Power 5 schools with damn near every team has their own strength coach. And we have 1 or 2 that are not real understanding. And trying to get a little more backing from our administrator on those issues, which right now she doesn't have much of a spine to stand up to anybody, but I do. So I'm probably not with 90% of the Olympic coaches I have a great relationship with. You're gonna always have one or two that are gonna be assholes, and so I just got to deal with it. Now, but they just hired someone who's head of Olympics, which we didn't have before. So now I'll be dealing with, all right, if they don't fit in with football, but they fit in with swimming, what do we do? Who fires that person or hires that person?
How do you put that administrative hat on? How much do you have to, and what advice would you give to coaches that do?
I mean, a lot, because our AD, even though I'm just supposed to be over football, he wants my hand in everything. Like he wants, me to interview just about anybody who comes into the department and not leave it up to the administrator that's supposed to be doing the hiring. So I'm kind of in a tough place because I came just for football. If I didn't come for the others, I've had my time where I had, 6 sports by myself, and I trained 6 sports solo, no help, and I'm done with that. I want to concentrate. I want to build the best football program I can, and I can't do that if I'm constantly having to walk away and work and worry about what an Olympic sport is doing or what an Olympic strength coach is doing. So I'm pushing to sometime this year where I at least get one coach who's just football only with me.
Yeah. And like you said, you're kind of just talking about essentialism, and if it doesn't make the boat go faster, you're not going to do it, because your job is to make them, as big, fast, strong. And I mean, like you said, you're getting certified in yoga, so that way you could just do that one thing that can continue to, help the guys feel more fresh. So that way come Saturday, they're feeling at their best.
I mean, I want to be at a place where I am solely focused on a football program, period. Nothing else, to where, because I always feel like I never have enough time with them. I never can do enough. I can never implement all the things that I really want to implement, because I'm always being pulled in other directions. Or, they have to go to class, which kind of sucks. If they didn't have to go to class, we'd be in good shape.
Yeah, the whole, when COVID had everything being, asynchronous online, that was the best, because kids could just do the work when they wanted to, right?
Oh yeah. It was, I had 35 guys at my house training all through COVID. I had racks in my yard, man. We were training in the grass.
Get it done, right?
Get it done.
When how often will you guys have any games in the middle of the week, and how hard is that for you to handle? And what advice would you have for coaches that do that with football in the middle of the week?
Yeah, I think we have one Thursday game and one Friday game this year. As more than anything is the player load, and trying to get them to back down. I think coaches typically, when you have a short week, they kind of freak out because they get, I feel like they're under the gun, stressed out. But I mean, the way I look at it, we started in January with what we call football school. So it's basically Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's really a practice. From January to spring football, we couldn't use a ball for a lot of it, but we still did 7-on-7. They were still running plays. Then we went through spring ball. Then we came out of spring ball, and in summer training, we're still doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, basically a 2-hour practice. Now you can have a ball, you just can't do a competition against each other with it. And then 7-on-7 after. So, I mean, we should be, if they don't know it by now, when are they going to know it? And so going into camp, it should be just tidying things up so that when we get to those short weeks, that we can back off and drop our player load to, 250 instead of 500, and we'll be fine for the games. And it's just educating the coaches. I'll be our head trainer and we have done a really good job of educating our coaches on Catapult and how to read it and what the numbers mean and what we need to do, going forward. And they're starting to really, really listen. I showed them where last year at Tech that I did verticals all the way through camp, all the way through to January. And after camp, the week after camp, we were 6 to 8. That was our range, 6 to 8 inches below their initial jumps on vertical. 6 to 8. It took, before the first guys started to recover and get back to baseline, it took almost 5 weeks. Then it took like to week 8 before everybody was back at baseline. So, and the reason that is because everybody beats the shit out of their teams at camp. So you really don't, like, coach is like, well, everybody, everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. Well, you can't tell that the teams are slower because they're all slow.
Yeah.
They all do the same shit. They all just get beat down. But if you have a 5-week window, so if you come out of camp and go, you know what, we're going to start backing off. We'll slowly build up in camp, and then we'll come back down, and we'll start mitigating everything that we do, so that you better be able to teach it in 1 hour and 15. If you can't, you suck as a coach. That should be the mentality. And so if you're completely recovered when the season starts and your guys are moving fast and you can still microdose a little bit of speed work during camp, your team will be so much faster for 5 weeks. You have a 5-week window to stay faster than everybody else, but no one does because they just beat the fuck out of each other.
How much do you think you're going to have the ability to, have that happen then?
During my interview, that was part of my interview process, and I showed them that on a PowerPoint. And so when I get back on Monday, and because I have 3 weeks left of training, and I will start going through every little thing that we will do in camp and why, and how we should program our practices. And hopefully, for instance, he's finally, I'm new, so I have to build trust with the head football coach too. But I've been on the money on pretty much everything that I've asked him so far. So he's starting to really believe in science and what I bring to the table. So I'm hoping, because I can show them on from their past reports of why they played poorly in certain games, and you can look at the load, and it's like, Jesus, man, these dudes on 2 practices played in 3 games or 4 games. And so you're doing that right before you leave to go play them. Of course, they're tired.
How do you, as a guy that's been around it for a while, if a young coach is listening to this and like, man, he can barely get through to his coach, why should I even keep trying to get through to mine? Or what piece of advice would you give them to have an influence on practice design? We know it's important, but what would be your piece of advice?
In my career, because I'm one of the older guys in the field. I think Mickey Marotti, maybe Glass, Batson, maybe us 4 are probably the oldest in the field. I'm almost 60, but I've seen coaches get beat down by head football coaches and just take it. I have never been that dude, and I never will be. I will always fight. I would rather voice my opinion and get shut down than just to sit there and go, well, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. And it does matter, because what happens is if the head coach isn't listening, some of those position coaches are, and they're very protective of their guys. So believe me, our receiver and DB coaches, they're all right, Kurt. What do I do in individual? Nothing. Nothing. Save your guys for team. All right, got it. And so they'll play around, burn up a whole bunch of periods, and and then save the legs of their athletes. And so go to the position coaches and try and work with them on modifying what they do. Throw out all the useless drills that have nothing to do with their position, that they just throw in there to kill time, and get them look, man, why are you killing their legs on shit that doesn't help them in football? And most of the time they go, you're right. All right. I said, just act like you're teaching something. Just move your hands around on film a lot.
That's a good point.
Yeah, just become a great actor.
here's a cheeky question for you. Did you still periodize the music the same way that you talked about in the Madman book where?
Yeah, because when you watch workouts, when you walk in and you crank it up right off the bat, like I walk in and say, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing this today. This is the focus points, and this is the emphasis of today. You know, it's like this one exercise is the workout, whether it's on the field or in the weight room. We're building up to this one modality, and so I'll slow it down, and because a lot of us, you know, especially any kind of technical lifts, fuck the music. You got to hear me coach.
Yeah.
So when it's really technical, it's off. And then as we go, build it up. And then at the end, especially we'll do some hypertrophy stuff for, like, you know, 7 minutes straight. And so we'll crank the music up, and they'll have like a three exercise rotation. And you just, you know, and it's just because we were pretty small, so I had to put some size on these guys. So then we crank the music up as, you know, whatever the hell they wanted on. And which is really weird is I got some dudes that love like German dubstep type, like freaking wild ass shit, and Nirvana, and they're singing and they know every word. I'm like, all right, I got, you know, 60 brothers in here who are singing and know every word to every Nirvana song.
You got range.
Yeah, I'm like, I dig these dudes. These dudes, yeah, these dudes are awesome. It's not just rap every day.
Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Like you said, you're on a beach, you're out there having fun. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that you didn't have an opportunity to kind of say, but you know, now would be the time?
I don't know, man. It's just, you know, this field is, I think, kind of, you know, I hate to say it, like, I quit going to conferences in 1995 because I couldn't stand strength, because I couldn't stand strength coaches. I was like, man, fuck these dudes. They're a bunch of assholes, a bunch of arrogant, logo wearing, you know, douchebags. And I couldn't handle. I just said, man, I'm here to learn. I got to deal with this shit. And I just want to become a better coach. And that was 1995. So I went 20 years without going to a clinic. I would just go learn from the best coaches in Canada. I mean, I'd go sleep on floors to learn and sleep in their offices because I hated our field. It wasn't me, you know. Everybody wanted to look like Vin Diesel or Stone Cold. So that's why I grew my hair really long. I'm growing my shit, looking like fucking Tarzan when I walk into a room. And then when I went to the CSCCA this year, I was like, all right, it's been like over 30 years. It's the same, maybe worse because of social media. And we got all these young coaches following dudes that are total douchebags that have zero aptitude for this field, you know, but they think they're like the top of the field, but they couldn't program for a junior high football team, much less a Power 5 team. And it's, you know, we're still undereducated, to a certain extent, undercertified. We still got, you know, guys who are in it just for their social media presence. I've always been an athlete guy. You know, it's like the worst thing you can see to me in life is an athlete that you coach 5-10 years down the road is not doing good in life. And I think we have that kind of impact on dudes to help change their life. And, you know, when you got dudes who are just like, you know, show the, you know, let's fill the sleeves. Nah, motherfucker, fill your brain with some freaking knowledge. Become a great strength coach. So that's my fatherly advice for all young coaches. Be careful who you idolize, because usually they fucking suck.
My advice to everybody is to hear more rants like that. You can get the rants of a strength and conditioning madman. There was 2 different charities that this supported, right? Wounded Warriors, and what else?
No, it's Navy SEALs Foundation.
Navy SEALs Foundation.
And St. Jude's.
St. Jude's, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was going to thank you as well and say the same thing about the book. I need to get my hands on that book. It's hard to get shipped here, but I'll do it.
You see all the little, like, you know, I got all my little tags of, like, I mean, but again, like I said, it's not only will you get nice little enjoyment rants like that, but again, you know, self-assessments in here, or, you know, if you get in an altercation with a sport coach or injury incident,
it's like transparent,
it's
straightforward. Yeah.
Good things.
I think the best part is the copyright infringement. No one reads it, but read my copyright infringement. I think that's the best part of the whole book. You'll get a kick out of that one.
All right.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you again, Coach. Really
No
appreciate
problem.
it. You enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you for having me, man.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.